Fitzy and Wippa.
We're waiting for the Prime Minister to call through. Scott Morrison yesterday at the press club in Canberra. Geez, he was. There was quite a few journalists getting up and ripping right into the Prime Minister.
You know what? The look on his face when he was, I suppose, stumped or surprised by this question was just disappointment. He was just like, oh, my God, we're really doing this?
Peter Van Onselen from Channel 10 got up and had received a text message or a conversation that was going on between Gladys Berejiklian and a Liberal Party member. Here it is.
In one, she described you as, quote, a horrible, horrible person, going on to say she did not trust you and you're more concerned with politics than people. The Minister is even more scathing, describing you as a fraud and, quote, a complete psycho. Does this exchange surprise you? And what do you think it tells us?
Well, I don't know who you're referring to or the basis of what you've put to me. But I obviously don't agree with it, and I don't think that's my record.
Prime Minister joins us right now. Mr Morrison, welcome.
G'day, boys. How are you?
Oh,
Good, mate. Good to have you on the show. I mean, timing is everything. Frustrating, of course, yesterday at the press conference, the conversation and the text and the question that we just all heard. Is it something that's been validated? I mean, have you heard from Gladys? Do we know that she was involved in that text exchange? That was her?
Oh, Gladys put out a statement yesterday saying she has absolutely no recollection of it at all. And it's certainly not been the nature of any of the discussions her and I have ever had. We've always had very good exchanges. Yeah, premiers and prime ministers on policy issues, we have disagreements from time to time. That you'd expect that, and we have those, behind closed doors, and get out there and work together because that's what people always expect. And whether it's me and Gladys Berejiklian, or me and Mark McGowan, or me and Anastasia Palaszczuk, that's the nature of a professional working relationship amongst leaders. But look, I can't speak to that. I mean, a journalist has thrown up an anonymous sort of text message in the middle of a press gallery thing. Journalists like to do that. A journalist has questions they're answering themselves, I know at the moment. Look, that's just, go and read my Twitter feed. People probably say some pretty nasty things on there too, but, I brush it off and just keep focused on working with the same people.
The thing is, you talk about Gladys and your relationship. We know that's always been strong, but it almost feels like it's out of character for Gladys because she's a smart operator and this would be considered fairly reckless, even if she had those thoughts, to put it in writing.
Well, I think that's a fairly reasonable assessment. That's why I think people will look at this for what it is, and they'll make their own judgments about it. But the record is we worked together to save lives in New South Wales, and I'm very proud of the work that her and I did together. And as you know, I was very forceful in my defence of her with everything that she copped, which I think was very unfair, the way she was treated, and that still remains my very, very strong view.
Yesterday was also, you came out yesterday, Prime Minister, and said that the way that you handled the pandemic and the vaccine rollout as well, if you had your time again, you would have changed.
On the vaccination program, if I had my time over, I would have put it under a military operation from the outset and not later in the year.
That's the first time that we've heard that from you, Prime Minister. Was it a big thing for you to do yesterday?
Well, I think it was important. I'd actually said at the time last year, not specifically about putting General Fruin in charge, that, I was sorry that we hadn't hit our marks early, but we needed to turn that around. And so what I did was I put General Fruin in, and that has turned it around. We have now one of the highest vaccination rates in the country. I said at the same press club event last year that we'd hoped to have everyone offered a vaccination by October of last year. Mm-hmm. Now, we ended up achieving that, I think, on the 25th of October. So we did have some big challenges. We'd had AstraZeneca basically taken out from people under the age of 50. We had the supplies that we'd contracted out of Europe blocked and not sent to Australia, which were filling those early parts of the vaccination program before other things came online. So, we had those challenges. And there were some logistical challenges which General Fu and his team were able to get on and fix. And that's not me being critical of the health department. They were dealing with many other issues as well. And so bringing in General Fruin's team and allowing him to focus very specifically on that, I think made a big difference. And that's the thing in pandemics. This is the point I was trying to make. You can't get everything right. No country has. And so when you step back and go, well, what have we achieved? We've saved 40,000 lives. We've got one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. We've got one of the strongest economies with unemployment at 4.2%. It was at 6.6% a year ago. So, when you go to the big ticket items and the big calls that have to be made, then Australia's performance stands out. Now, I know we've had a frustrating summer. That was one of the other things I said.
Yep.
We got to the end of the year. We'd all worked hard to get the country vaccinated. Australians have done amazingly, our health workers, aged care workers. And under the Delta strain of the virus, we believed, and the results were there, that showed the vaccination protected us from that. And then Omicron hit. And the vaccines didn't do that. And it wasn't very clear in the first couple of weeks what all that meant.
Yeah.
But when we understood it, we knew it was less severe, then we could start changing. It was like dealing, I've got to say, with a completely different virus. Like the whole thing started again.
Different strategy
all the rules
again.
that were there no longer applied in many circumstances. So we had to move quickly, and that created frustrations. I know, and if I'm guilty of being too optimistic, looking forward to summer, I think many people did, and it wasn't a great summer for everybody, and we are very sorry about that.
Well, here's an idea for you, Prime Minister. I mean, we're trying to get people to get their boosters now, and probably our fourth jabs are coming up as well. So why don't we combine the two when we're voting for the federal elections, so we can go and vote, and we can also get another booster in there as well.
And a hot dog.
Can you give us a date when we can get that fourth booster, Mr. Morrison?
Democracy vaccination.
Yes.
Close to the democracy sausage.
Are we looking more May towards the end, or you're thinking around April, Prime Minister?
Well, it'll still be this year, I can assure you of that. We've got a budget coming up at the end of March, and that will be very important.
Yep.
Because the economic plan, and yesterday, journalists down in Canberra focus on all sorts of things, but we made a very important announcement yesterday, not just about supporting aged care workers more right now because of the great job they're doing and keeping them there doing that job, but yesterday we announced, you'll have many young people out there listening to this, others who work in universities, researchers, work in manufacturing jobs. Yesterday, we announced a plan to link up our university researchers with our businesses and our companies. When you look to the United States and you see where have their big companies come from, where have the big jobs, the tech jobs, the high-paying jobs come from, it's always come out of great ideas, researchers. And in this country, our researchers and our entrepreneurs sort of keep their distance from each other.
Yeah, sure.
And what we're doing is trying to bring them together, fuse them together, and that will mean more successful companies, more jobs. We're going to see unemployment in this country, I believe, with a 3 in front of it. We haven't seen that since the early 70s.
Okay.
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we're about to achieve. And we've never had more apprentices in trade training.
Yep.
I think I've told you guys before, it was one of the first things that Josh and I did. We were very worried about all those apprentices losing their job at the start of their pandemic because, first on, last off.
Yeah.
Unemployment with a 3 in front of it would be amazing.
It would be amazing.
There's one more thing we need to talk about.
Before we did JobKeeper, we put the wage subsidy in for apprentices.
Yep.
And I've been meeting those apprentices all around the country who have lost their jobs and they're still in them, and we have the highest level of apprentices in trade training since 1963.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Prime Minister, just before we do, I know it was all serious, this chat, but there is an apology coming my way to you because
this was terrible.
For everyone out there, we went to a Christmas party that the Prime Minister was at as well, and unfortunately my wife had a few too many drinks and tried to get the Prime Minister out onto the dance floor. This is a true story, Sarah. This was the thing. It got to the point where my wife was trying to get him onto the dance floor where I thought a sniper was going to wing her at some stage.
Yeah, I was hoping
the security were going to come through and tackle her to the ground. So apologies from the Fitzgerald family, Scott. But you know what? There was a moment there where you were thinking about getting and doing a bit of a breakdance on the dance floor.
Well, Jenny was on.
Jenny was on. She did it all for me, and Jen had a great night with particularly with everybody, and it was a nice time to just sort of relax a bit because there hasn't been too many of those. But yes,
your face,
well,
your face when they were trying to get you on the dance floor, you were like that. I have not seen. Yeah, it was worse than yesterday at the press club. It was like, I'm not doing anything you're telling me to do.
Well, you know what? When BJ was yelling out ScoMo dance floor, and then I said, Prime Minister, you are not dancing. Yeah. There was a bit of tug of war there, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I had to drag Jen out of there. We had to get home, but it doesn't get very often when she has the opportunity to really do that. So
we appreciate your time, Prime Minister. We know how busy you are. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Stay to your mum for me, Wippa.
I will, mate. Thanks, buddy.
Fitzy and Wippa.